Good evening, day trippers. This is your Red Sea full-time. Liverpool 2, Manchester City 2. Hello guys, welcome along. I was a bit trigger happy with the intro there, but I've got Steve, my good friend, with me. How are you, mate? What a game.
Mate, I'm after the first half and that second half performance, mate, I'm absolutely exhausted. It was insane, wasn't it, mate? What a second half that was.
Crazy, wasn't it? I mean, you've kind of got to go chronologically, otherwise we're just going to be kind of zipping about all over the place, aren't we? But I mean, you know, we look at the team, City pretty much unchanged from that Chelsea game. I expected a very similar performance from them. Foden in the false nine, Jesus out wide with, you know, a lot of creativity in there with Bernardo, De Bruyne as well, Rodri kind of covering, and Liverpool stuck with Jota, stuck with Jones. What were your initial thoughts looking at the lineups, what we could expect?
If I'm honest with you, I wanted to see Bobby play because Bobby's particularly good at sort of stifling the central defensive midfielders of teams like Chelsea, because Jorginho struggles against Bobby historically. So does Rodri. I thought playing Jota played into their hands a little bit. I won't lie to you, I was always a little bit worried about Milner's lack of mobility against anybody that City chose to put out on the left, whether it be Grealish, whether it be Sterling, whether it be Foden. They've all got something different to offer. But, you know, I kind of wanted to see Liverpool come and play on the front foot. And for me, I think it started slower than I would have liked, to be fair.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think the first 10, 15 minutes, we looked good. We looked on the front foot. We looked positive. City kind of taken aback a little bit by the Anfield end. Obviously, we normally shoot that way second half. So it kind of felt like a second half kind of atmosphere to me in that first 10, 15 minutes. But yeah, you know, once they weathered the storm, you felt that City would get on the ball more, get into the game. And like you said, mate, the last half an hour of that first half was painful watching, wasn't it?
I tweeted, I can't wait for half time to come. We were really hanging on. And the funny thing is, I was seeing other tweets from other fan bases, you know, mocking what was going on, that we were so deep. Listen, Manchester City make no bones about it. We all know they're a good side. I know I'm stating the obvious, but they don't get to where they get without being good at what they do. And they asked lots and lots of questions. Always a mixture of Ederson and some good defensive blocks. Got us through to half time. Do you know what? We talk about managers who can make tactical changes without making substitutions. We look at managers who can do that. Klopp came out in the second half with exactly the same team, exactly the same formation, made a couple of little tweaks to the role that they were doing within the side, and that's answered the questions for me. The guy tactically got it spot on in the second half. But yeah, first half couldn't end. That's a massive 15 minutes where you get to sit down with the players and say, do this, do that, stop doing this, stop doing that. And we came out in the second half and we gave a much better account of ourselves, mate, much better.
No, it wasn't it? Especially after that Bernardo Silva run where he beats pretty much the entire team. You're thinking, okay, something needs to change. And you see Klopp running down the tunnel, ready for that halftime team talk. And yeah, you rarely see Liverpool make subs at halftime. I didn't expect personnel changes, but you're right in what you say. There was a little bit of a tactical change, slightly different. In terms of even the way the forwards were playing, you know, they started to be a bit closer together. And you know, for that first goal, you know, like you mentioned, Ederson stops Foden twice, one with a save, one with his foot. You know, we're clinging on really, and we take the lead. You know, Salah and Mane linking up, and in my opinion, should link up a hell of a lot more than they do. Both of them absolute pace merchants, and at times we've seen them clash, not pass into each other. But you know, a great run from Salah, and it looks like Jota's the ball, but he slides Mane in with that darting run, and a great finish and gets us on our way. What did you make of that goal?
Brilliant. You're quite right. When Salah picks up the ball and starts running at you, you know you're in trouble. What's really clever there is the timing of Mane's run gives Diaz no chance to react to his run. So we respect Diaz for the player that he is, but to be honest with you, mate, he was caught totally flat-footed for Mane's run. You have to ask about communication because he ran across the back line into that space, but I'm not complaining. You're quite right. Those two have got everything to offer in terms of pace and movement, and Mane's copped a lot of flack, and we know he's not been the player that we've seen 2 years ago, but you can never rule him out. It was a great finish. I was out of my chair, leaping around the living room and stuff, mate. So it was a great move and a great goal, and the ball into Salah was a bit good as well, because I often speak about players wanting the ball in a position when they can use it, when they can hurt the opposition, and Salah got the ball in exactly the right place. And once he starts moving with that ball, it's like on a piece of string, isn't it? Sometimes. So, but Mane's run and finish was absolutely super. It gave the goalkeeper no chance.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that was Mane's 99th Premier League goal. So Salah's only just tipped into the 100 club. Mane, you would think, will be getting there very, very soon, hopefully, anyway. But it was about 10 minutes later that Manchester City hit back through Phil Foden, who I thought was exceptional today. Again, Silva involved early doors, Jesus with the run as well, and a great finish from Foden. And I'm always very critical every time Liverpool concede a goal. There's always someone that I blame or someone I look at and think they could have done more. But for me, that was just a fantastic goal by a really good team that really did deserve a goal up to that point. Was your thoughts quite similar?
100%. Great finish. Can't blame the goalkeeper. No, the goalkeeper would never get anywhere near that. I mean, we don't like Bernardo Silva because he's done and said some things about the football club, and his behaviour's been a bit, shall we say, poor in relation to our club. But he's a good footballer, and there are times today when he really carried the ball really well for City. But Phil Foden's a prodigious talent. We've been saying this for 18 months now, and it didn't start the season because hangover from the Euros and what have you. But that's two top teams going at it, hammer and tongs there second half, and he picks the ball up. And the way he just pushed it into the far corner, into the side netting. It was a great finish. And, down that side, they caused us plenty of problems. And that's where you could see if we were going to let them in. Ironically, the second goal comes from that side as well. It starts. That's where we were going to get caught out. And it came to pass that way. But can't take nothing away from Foden. That's a brilliant finish.
Unbelievable. I mean, like you say, you look at the England team in the Euros, and you've got Grealish and Foden barely featuring, and they're two major players for Man City. It makes you wonder. But it's an interesting point that you make, because I was going to move on to the right back position. James Milner got his yellow card, which we all knew was going to happen at some point, and I think quite fortunate not to get a second. What were your thoughts on that particular incident?
Do I look sheepish now? Because I really should be. That is 100% a second yellow, mate. That is an awful challenge. It's late. It's high. He goes, it connects with him near his hip, and you know what? If the foul itself doesn't look bad, the way that he went down was awful. Yeah, he landed on his head, didn't he? Mate, we got away with one there. Milner should really have walked for that. So. Sometimes they go for you and sometimes they go against you, and we ourselves, mate, have had a few decisions go against us. So bottom line, mate, is we'll take that one. We deserve a few, don't we?
Oh, 100%. Let me just sort my camera out so I'm not going to be.
There you go, you're back.
Blurry. That's better. Yeah. So I mean, I look at it, and I just wanted to make a bit of a caveat here, because I look at Nico Williams on the bench. You've got Trent injured, you've got Milner starting, and you've got Gomez coming on. Is there any point of Nico Williams being at the club without being disrespectful?
Nico Williams needs to go on alone, I think, personally speaking. My worry is, and it's a point I thought about before I came on, Van Dijk and Gomez have had career-threatening injuries. Van Dijk has come back on and not really missed a heartbeat, looks every inch the assured defender that he was.
Yeah.
Gomez looks all over the place. Gomez's positional sense, the willingness to go on when the ball wasn't there. He can close down quicker certainly for the second goal. He can do a bit more. Nico Williams is a difficult one. I don't think Nico Williams is good enough. We would have been better keeping Hoover, the guy we sold to Wolves, and playing him there, Yanni Hoover. So I'm not convinced Nico Williams would have been the answer. But I have to say, against tricky players, I mean, go back to the Palace game. Milner should rightly pick up a yellow card in the first 5 minutes against Zaha. He does that. it's a completely different game for Milner. So he's got away with in as many games. We do need to look at that position, or in games like that, should we play a 3-5-2? But then that comes with all kinds of different problems, doesn't it, tactically and system wise? But that will always be a tactic against us if Trent's not there, Milner's playing right back. We're always going to suffer that.
I agree. I think, like you say, Kostas Tsimikas came in, last summer, had a difficult first season, injuries and COVID, but has looked the part this season and has given Robertson something to think about. Not necessarily going to kick him out of the big games, but there's someone pushing for that position, and I don't really feel we have that with Trent's side. Like you mentioned, you've got Milner can do a job there. He's probably going to be leaving the club come the end of the season, and I've always said Joe Gomez I rate him as a centre back, but I've never rated Joe Gomez as a full back. He's just not got the right attributes for me in that position. And yes, he's got a yard of pace, which helps out, especially if he's playing the last 20 minutes. And they've brought Grealish off, they've brought Sterling on. Milner can't then go again and match somebody else for the last half hour. So that makes sense. But I do feel that you're right in what you say. We need to.
Did he improve us? Did he improve us when he came on? I'm not so sure he did.
No.
A better shout from me, and I saw it on Twitter, would be to put Robertson at right back and bring Tsimikas on and play a bit left back, because Robbo and Trent swap quite often anyway. If that's the case, Klopp's happy with Robertson filling in at right back from time to time. And defensively, you're not going to get round Robbo like you did the other two. So listen, it's all very easy to say in hindsight, but Gomez's form is a concern.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a really good place to leave that debate. I mean, like you say, but time will tell with that one, really. Hopefully Trent will be back after the international break, and we can move forward with the four that we're used to seeing. But my favourite moment of the match to talk about next, mate, Mo Salah. He's finally getting credit after 4 years of one season wonders. I mean, where do you even begin to describe how good that goal was? And for me, have we just seen the goal of the season?
It takes something to top that. That's a Messi-esque. If Messi does that, Sky do a documentary on it tonight, mate. Simple as that. What I would say is, if it takes us £500,000, £600,000, £700,000 a week to keep Mo Salah at the football club, Liverpool Football Club, get it done. Doesn't matter what it costs. Get it done. That guy is the best for me right now. Is arguably the best player on the planet. His form is sensational. He is, as Gary Neville said, and I don't very often agree with Gary Neville, he is twisting and tying up and turning international alleged world-class defenders inside out. And then the finish, he is absolutely ridiculously good. Absolutely ridiculously good, mate. And there's a few people saying, is he Liverpool's best ever Premier League player? He's knocking on the door in that conversation. 100% he's knocking on the door, mate. So it was sensational. What a goal, mate. I will watch that time and time again all night, mate. It was fantastic, wasn't it?
I mean, the only thing it wasn't the winner, which was a shame, because what a way to win a game of football with that magnitude. And like you say, we've seen him score these kind of goals against Watford. I think he got 4 in one game against them, and the Everton goal that got the award. But to do that, like you say, against Manchester City, who have got the best defensive record in the league this season, I think they've conceded 1 goal in the Premier League. So as you say, the drag past Bernardo Silva, he's got the upper body strength to hold players off. He's got the quick feet. And then with the port, puts him in a knot and then ends up going on his right foot. And that finish with your weak foot across the goal against Ederson is just outrageous. And like you say, you mentioned Messi, you mentioned Ronaldo. They're both coming towards the end of their careers. They're definitely past their peaks. You've got Erling Haaland, who's probably on that level, but not quite hit his top bracket yet. And like you say, Mo Salah for me is the best player in the world right now, purely because he's in his prime. He's doing it consistently week in, week out, and he's just got so much to his game. That's his 7th game in a row that he's scored in. It's just, even if he doesn't score, he's causing problems. He's getting assists, he's creating chances. So for me, I would not swap him for anyone. And like you say, with the contract situation, I mean, at some point, if you've got a player that's that good, you're going to have to pay them what they deserve. And, whether it's 250 or 300k a week, that's worth it, isn't it? If you let him leave, how much are you spending on getting someone half as good? You
can't replace him. And at the end of the day, listen, if we're all honest about it, out of the euphoria of football, no footballers wear 500 grand a week. No, they're not. Absolutely, they're not. But in the grand scheme of things, what clubs are prepared to pay? Listen, if Liverpool Football Club are not prepared to pay that, someone like Real Madrid or a PSG absolutely will. 100%. So let's stop messing around. We don't need to take this goal this weekend to decide that for ourselves. Let's get him and his agent down to the club and get this sorted out, mate, because because you can see when he scores, mate, he's happy at the football club, and we need to take advantage of that. I mean, to get this guy signed up, mate, because when his career's done, he's up there in a conversation with Gerrard and Dalglish in terms of the top 3 or 4 players the football club's ever had. His numbers are insane.
Ridiculous.
If he was clinical, he'd be given his Messi numbers. If he learns anything from today, trust the right foot, trust the swinger a bit more, because you know what? You don't always need to be on your left foot because it works.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've got a really good show on Red Sea Podcast, guys, coming up. So if you are not subscribed, give us a subscribe in this top corner here, Red Sea Podcast. We've got tier list coming up next week, which Steve is a major part of as well. So we're going to be talking about some strikers. We've got Redmen guests coming on for that. And we've got a special Mo Salah. Is he the greatest Liverpool player we've seen on Tuesday with Chris Pajak from Redmen TV as well. So that's going to be excellent. So do not miss next week. We've got a triple Redmen Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday guests all next week to keep you covered in the international break. But moving on in the game, Steve, Bobby comes on for Jota. And like you say, many people thought that Bobby would maybe start this game. He tends to bring Bobby in against the kind of top 4 teams. He offers that little bit more defensively, that little bit more off the ball. But he comes on, and a minute later, Manchester City make it 2-2. So I think Bobby kind of half chases Bernardo Silva, doesn't really get there. You know, Foden gets the ball in. Andy Robertson kind of gets a foot to it, but De Bruyne, pretty good finish, but hits Matip. It's one of them. It's a bit messy all round, but the pressure and the territory that Manchester City get is going to equal a goal at some point. So do you think we could have avoided that goal a bit more? Do you think the sub was done at the right time? What did you make of that?
There's never a right or a wrong time to make a substitution. I thought Jota played on the periphery of the game for quite a lot of it. Listen, he's going to be a special player, but against City, you need to have, if you're playing centrally, you need to have a bit more about you. You need to be able to work backwards. I think you're quite right. The ball strikes Matip. That could have ended up anywhere. Could have gone in the cop, could have gone over the roof, could have gone anywhere, but it goes in the back of the net and City get their equaliser. I think off the back of the first half performance, if we're sitting here having beaten City 2-1, we'd be even more elated than we are. That's the 2 top teams in the Premier League really going for each other in the second half, and it was a tremendous watch, and the rest of Europe needs to tune in and have a look at that, because that's as good as club football is going to be. Absolutely. But what they'll do is I'll sit down and have a look at the video, and I do make this point a number of times when I'm on pods, and you cut out the danger at its source, not the fact that it hit Matip. It's not Matip's fault. He's the last man in a series of events, and it hits him and goes in. Look, City are always going to come back at us after going 2-1 down, because they've got it in them. They're a good enough side to do that. It's disappointing that there's a number of things there we could have done differently. We roughed Bernardo Silva up a bit today in terms of some really heavy challenges on him. Yeah. And, he's a good player and you've got to get a grip of him. And we didn't for the goal, mate. So it's frustrating. It's no great surprise because, as I say, City play with almost 3 number 10s. Yeah. And it's hard to keep them out. And the only way you keep City out is to be brave against them. And we were. But unfortunately, it happens. It happens. It's a deflection. Was the shot going to beat Alisson anyway? Probably not. But it deflects off someone and it goes in, and we'll get them in our favour next week or the week after. So you just have to suck them up, mate, and get on with it, don't you?
I mean, I think we had 4 in one game, didn't we? In that 7-2 Villa game, every single shot that was going to hit the corner flag deflected in somehow. We always seem to get.
I can't believe you've mentioned that. I can't believe you brought that up. But there you go.
Oh well, I won't talk about it ever again. That's it forever. But 2-2, and I really thought that Fabinho was going to get the winner, because it almost looked like slow motion. It went over the top. It felt like all he had to do was tap it in, and Rodri comes across with let's be fair, a world-class block. But do you think Fabinho should and probably could have done more? And what did you make of his overall performance today as well?
I don't think he had one of his best games today. I think it was a bit bitty. Another yellow card for a clumsy challenge, shall we say, but a sensible yellow card, because I think City run a break when he makes that challenge. Yeah. With regards to the goal, that ball has got to come down. So he's not a centre forward, so he's not going to take it on the rise. He's not going to take it waste time. By the time it comes down, I think what we need to do here is take a look at that and say, all credit to Rodri for making that. He could have given it up, but he didn't. And by the time the ball comes down, Rodri's closed down the gap, and it's a great block. It just fell to the wrong man. If that falls to a centre forward, they don't wait for it to come down.
No,
They finish
I
it
agree.
wherever it is. So I'm not going to hang him out to dry for that one or criticise him for that one. What I'm going to say is absolutely top defending by Rodri. But if it falls to a Salah or a Mane, that's in the back of the net, mate.
Yeah, I agree. I think the first touch, he almost doesn't expect it to come over. It takes it the wrong way, and like you say, the time he's kind of readying himself for a shot, it's already gone. And Fabinho only scores 30-yard out of the box screamers, doesn't he? Let's be fair. Tap-ins aren't his forte. But an interesting comment here from Ghost. Henderson didn't think he had a very good game today by his comment there. I think Henderson did look a little bit out on his feet as well at times towards the end. I mean, obviously, you can't have a go at him for being knackered in the 80th minute in a game of that intensity because he's put everything in. But what did you make of the captain's performance today?
Henderson had a really, really, really horrible injury when we saw that the violent vibration in his leg at the end of last season, and he missed the end of the season and went to the Euros, and he wasn't fit to play at the Euros. I don't think he's fit now. I think if you sat him down, he was honest with you, he'd say he's not as mobile as he'd like to be. He's not as aggressive as he'd like to be. He's not competitive as he'd like to be. The problem you have, and this is going back to the injury thing again, when players get serious injuries, and Henderson's was a serious injury, it wasn't just a strain, it was a serious tear. It was like a rupture. Takes a little while to get over the psychology of those injuries because you have to learn to trust your body. And I'm not seeing that from Henderson sort of week in, week out at the moment, that he trusts his body. His ability on the ball will always be what it is. He's always got a good pass in him, a cross in him. Positionally, he's quite good. He's just not as competitive as I'd like to see him. And I think that's a massive part of his game. And this is why teams are targeting us down the right, because he's not as effective in covering the right back as he's been in recent years. Trent's suffering from the fact that, look at the goal against Brentford, the final goal. Henderson's only just getting into our half when they score. Yeah, and right. I think that is indicative of where we're at with him at the moment. If it's the international break, I would pull him out of the international break and I'd have him at the club doing strengthening and conditioning, like we saw Gomez and Van Dijk do with all those videos through the summer where they work on the surrounding areas of the injury. I think he's a man who isn't fit at the moment.
I would agree. And again, there's people in the comments mentioning midfield. Do we need some new blood in there? You look at Thiago again, out and in. Keita, never can rely on him. Ox is another one. Half our midfield is constantly injured. Elliott's out now till March. I don't think Curtis Jones covered himself in too much glory today. I think he's had a good game in the last two. This is a massive step up from Porto and Brentford, but I don't think he should be relied on for 90 minutes against Manchester City. I think we had one sub left, but I don't feel we had anybody that we felt could have, improved the team. So are we missing that one midfielder that we spoke about so much before the season? Did you think that could be something to look at in Jan, or maybe we'd have to wait till the summer?
We all said it, and he had in different games last season. But sometimes you only realise what you've got when he's not there. Gini Wijnaldum was a big miss today in terms of that presence in midfield. Curtis Jones is a certain type of player who'll play really well against a certain type of opposition where he's going to see lots of the ball and he can carry, because that's what he wants to do. But every time he picked the ball up and looked to carry, Rodri just stepped 10 yards to his right and shut down the space that Curtis Jones was looking to play in. Yeah. So I think horses for courses with Curtis Jones. I'm certainly not going to make him generational, as they say, and I'm certainly not going to say he shouldn't be in the side, because he's learning all about football. That's a massive lesson for him today. He will feel today like a lot of that game has passed him by and he just watched it, because that's the reality of it. He did. So it's tough, but that's part of his education. They have to have good and bad games. We do need that body. I mean, you mentioned Thiago. You and I have spoken about Thiago at length. And, at the end of the day, Thiago will never give you a full season of availability. He's never done it throughout his career, 25 to 30 goals. And I get that Curtis assisted the goal, and that's great. But when you're playing Manchester City, it's what you do when you don't have the ball that's really important. It's learning how to occupy and mark space is the hardest thing to do in football. And that three in midfield that we use is such a specialist job on the left-hand side of that three, where Curtis tried to play today. I've always said I don't think he's capable of filling Wijnaldum's shoes. I don't think we have a midfielder in the club who can do that. I think that's a real one we need to solve. And if we certainly don't do it in January, it's something that needs to be addressed in the summer, because Oxlade-Chamberlain's going to have another season of indifference, and I can genuinely see him moving on in the summer. And it's sad because before his injury, he was a tremendous player.
Yeah.
But these things happen, and you can't wait for a man. And Keita is again, got attacked by a blade of grass and goes missing for 2 weeks. So it's a tough one, isn't it?
It is.
But you're right. Curtis Jones today was on the periphery of the game. I don't think Curtis Jones will come out of that game feeling like that was one of his better ones. But no. That's how he learns. That's how he learns.
Yeah, I agree. And you made a really good point earlier about give Mo Salah what he's worth. And we've been critical of the club not signing new players, but they almost used the new contracts as new signings. And I don't want to keep harping on about it because it's hurt me deeply. But why Gini Wijnaldum wasn't given a new contract that he was deserved for me is still crazy, because you mentioned the way we play in midfield and the way that we're so different to Manchester City. It's heavy metal against classical, and Wijnaldum was a massive part of the way we played and the success that we got playing in that way. So to try and bring Thiago in to change the way we play, to try and match Manchester City a bit more, when you've made a really good point, Thiago only works against certain opposition, only works in certain scenarios and never gets a full season out of him. Yet he comes in at the same age as Gini Wijnaldum on twice the money for 30 million, where you could have just given Gini Wijnaldum 150k a week, which he more than deserved, and continue to be successful playing in the same style of play. So for me, that's a bit of a difficult one to swallow.
I totally agree. You make a very good point. At the end of the day, I love Thiago as a footballer. He's a brilliant, brilliant footballer. But in the system we play, where the three in midfield are more workman and dogmatic than they are creative and inspirational and all of that good stuff. When we play with a double pivot, we push Thiago slightly further forward. But as Real Madrid proved in the quarterfinal of the Champions League last season, the switch is always on. You can always bypass whichever side that the midfield are not covering. So that three across the midfield, as rudimentary as it was absolutely brilliant in terms of recycling the ball, covering the fullbacks, filling in the spaces. I've been to war with Chelsea fans over Trent's role in the football club of recent weeks. The midfield, those two guys, Wijnaldum and Henderson, that their job was, when those two guys get advanced of you, you just become an auxiliary fullback.
Yeah,
and we've lost a touch of that, and I think I think that's why Fabinho struggled today, because Curtis Jones really wasn't there to contribute. And I'm not digging him out. And people are watching this and going, "This guy's all out. He's got an agenda." Curtis Jones is a tremendous footballer. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I love him too. But there's games when Curtis Jones' style of play will be found out. And today, Manchester City had too much. But Bernardo Silva ran off him pretty much all of the time, mate. So it is what it is. And you'll go away and get feedback and you'll learn from it. And that's the main thing.
Yeah, 100%. We've got Watford next. You'd expect probably the same midfield three unless Thiago or Keita really improve and get their fitness back over the next couple of weeks. But just before I touch on the result a little bit more, I just wanted to touch on the managers. A little bit roles reversed for me today. Klopp was the calm one and Pep was very, very animated. So how do you feel the managers handled the occasion, the tactics, the substitutes? What did you make of Pep v Klopp today?
So these two are head and shoulders above everyone else, and Tuchel is trying to join that party, and no doubt at some point in time we'll be able to include him in that conversation.
Yeah.
Chelsea's two results against City and Juve respectively do bring that comment into question, and rightly so. Pep was animated because we've already discussed this. James Milner shouldn't have been on the pitch, and if that was the other way around, and it was Bernardo Silva had done that to Milner, Klopp and Dinders and all those guys, who are very, very animated and very vocal, by the way, and they're not easy guys to sit around during a game of football. They would have been doing exactly the same. So I'm not going to sit here and say Guardiola was a lunatic and someone should tell him to wind his neck in, because that's the intensity that Manchester City have comes from their manager. The intensity Jurgen Klopp has is bred into the Liverpool side. They're not going to change. They're not going to change. They have a beer after the game, and at the end of the day, they're the two top guys. They're the two guys who make the differences. And yes, Klopp was calm today. He probably said everything he needed to say at half time, to be brutally honest with you. But to be fair, I don't blame Guardiola for being animated, and it's nice to see Klopp calm, because Klopp thinks, this is cool, we've got this.
Yeah, I mean, I look at, again, I'm going to get onto the result, kind of, was it a good point or 2 points drop? But I look at the season overall, we're unbeaten. we've drawn at home to Chelsea and City, which this early stage of the season isn't really the end of the world. I think only the Brentford result, even though they got a good win today away to West Ham, still it feels like that game was there to be won. I feel that's really the only one I've dropped. I felt we've dropped points in realistically. So you can probably tell what my answer is to this question. But after that first half, I think we'd have all taken a point come 90 minutes. But after taking the lead twice, does it feel to you like a point gained or two dropped today?
After the first half, it's 100% a point gained, and we need to be positive about this, because it's not the games against Manchester City and the draws against Chelsea that will decide who wins the title. It's the away games at places like Brentford and Watford that will always make the difference. Yes, it's nice to get one over in Manchester City. At half time, I'd have bitten your hand off for a draw, whether it be 0-0, 1-1 or 2-2. And I'm not going to change now. Manchester City are multiple title winners for a reason. And for large parts of the second half, we had them on toast, mate. They were very worried about what we were doing. But you can never rule them out from an attacking sense, because they play with so much variety up top. They've got so many runners and movers. They're very difficult to pick up. So what do I look at this at the end of the day when I sit down later and think about it? It's another point towards our whatever we finish in the season. A defeat today. I mean, that's 17 games now, including the back end of last season, unbeaten. And we are a side that works off momentum and intensity. And a defeat today could have sort of derailed us from that path we're going down. We will grow from this. We will continue to do this. There are lots and lots of positives from the second half performance. I think if we come out in the second half and played the way we did in the first half, the British media would have been saying, have we included Liverpool in the title race too prematurely? No, of course they haven't. Absolutely, we're in the race. We are in this right to the death. So today is a point towards our end total, mate. And given the first half performance, we will be happier than City come the final whistle, mate. Because at half time, when they were going down the tunnel, Guardiola must be thinking, if this happens in the second half, it's only a matter of time before we win this one.
No, I agree. I completely agree. It's a point gained. It could have been free. It could have been very, very special. I think we'd have all probably gone out there with a win and said, you know what, we were bloody lucky to come out with 3 points. I think a draw, it's pretty fair. I think Man City, I agree, will feel more disappointed than we will. I feel that me and you are in good spirits following that game. And you mentioned that 17-game unbeaten run. I remember when we lost 6 on the bounce at Anfield. I think the Fulham defeat was the one before this run. So to come from there to here, yes, we've got players back, but we didn't know how Van Dijk would return, Matip would return, Henderson return. It's all kind of coming together. And Mane on the score sheet yet again. He started to pick up the goals again, which is something I was a bit concerned about at the end of last season. Would he kick on again? But I still feel Bobby needs to go another gear. I know we got a couple of goals against Porto, but at Anfield he's still really struggling to get amongst the goals. But I think overall it's a point gained, isn't it? And we've got, like you say, we've got Watford away next. They've just sat them under. That's the kind of game we need to go there on a 12:30 and pick up all 3, isn't it?
Totally. And it's also worth mentioning, guys, we're 7 games into the season. There were no trophies given out at the end of the game tonight. You know what I mean? It's one of those. Let's be realistic about it. Manchester City will trip up. We will trip up. Chelsea will trip up. That will happen to us all. So there are no easy games in the Premier League anymore. Even Norwich will present you problems, and God bless them, they can't buy a win, can they? But the bottom line is, mate, is it's too early to be calling out people for so-called title challenges and this, that, the other. There's a lot of miles left in this season, but do you know what? You've got to feel excited to be in games like today. You've got to feel gassed by it. We're playing Manchester City, who, a lot is written about how good they are. We went into that game thinking we would win it. I know I did. We went into that game genuinely believing we would win it, and it turns out we get a draw. And those are the games you want to be competing in, because last season we were clinging on for dear life at times to a hope of top 4. And now we are absolutely in I think it's a 3-horse race, if I'm honest with you. I think the issues in one of our major competitors midfield will always be problematic for them. I think Chelsea will push us all the way, and so it's 1 from 3, mate. But no trophies given out today, so let's have some perspective. Let's use the second half as positives to build on. That's absolutely the way to go with that for me.
I could not agree more. Like you say, realistically, you've had a lot longer time supporting the Reds than I have, and especially in my time since the 90s, not really being involved in any kind of major title run. So to be involved, taking on the world's best, in the title race, we're in this close to winning a game. I'm more than happy with that. So long way to go. And yeah, if we're in and around it come April, come May, there's no reason why we can't be pushing all the way to the last day and see what happens. There's no reason we can't get 90 points this season. And if Man City and Chelsea do as well, like you say, it's going to be nip and tuck, isn't it? But I agree. As long as we're in and around there, it's we're moving forward. And if we can add the right kind of personnel in the summer, depending on wherever we come, we can remain competitive for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and hopefully until Klopp decides to call it a day. But that kind of brings us to the end of the Red Sea full time. Only sort of half hour or so that we do, guys. But Steve, just wanted to say massive thank you for jumping in at short notice. Really, no problem. Really appreciate it. And let everybody know where they can find you, because I know you do a lot on the First 11 as well.
Yeah, listen, I'm always up for a collaboration, so it's been a pleasure to join you on here. Maybe we'll do it again sometime. Do you know what? This is a Liverpool pod, and this is what I want to be doing more of, rather than jumping on other channels. But yeah, you do find me on First Next Eye, doing grounded football for Liverpool on a Monday night, and also doing a Friday Rivals on Usman's channel, which is a top 6 rivalry show. But it's always a pleasure, and it's kind of what I really want to do is kind of spend a bit more time on Reds only channels, where we talk solely about the Reds. It's been a pleasure to come on. Always good to spend some time with you in the pod, mate. And if you want to follow me, my social is down there. Just give us a quick follow. I'll follow you all back. And that's it, mate. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. Really, really appreciate it. Like you say, guys, you know where to find us at the Red Sea Podcast, on our own YouTube channel, on the Twitter as well. We've got lots coming up, as I mentioned. We've got Steve on our channel next week, 2 striker tier lists. We've got Paul Machin coming on, Chris Pajak, Ross from the Redmen as well. So it's not going down with the international break. It's stepping up, and obviously Watford preview show will be on its way once that game comes around as well. But yeah, that's been the Red Sea full time. I've been the Southern Scouser. This has been Steve Plunk. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.